Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today I want to talk about identity politics and the widening divide and the intensifying civil discourse that's happening in the United States, here in Canada, and around the world. Let's talk about it. Now I want to preface this all by saying that we as YouTubers, public figures, people who have a substantial audience, have a responsibility that we never asked for. And that responsibility is being mindful of the fact that there is a handful of our viewers who are very impressionable and who are highly susceptible to being influenced by what we say and even misunderstanding what we say, and thus our liabilities. And as such, myself personally, I try to create content which isn't provocative. If I'm ever provocative, it's going to be towards the end of, you need to be more prepared because this can happen. There are a lot of YouTube channels nowadays, though, that are playing identity politics because it's a lucrative game to play. I can tell you that. If I came out today and I picked a side, I would be set for life. I would get hundreds of thousands more subscribers. Each one of my videos would have hundreds of thousands of views. And I know the formula. I know the recipe to make videos like that. You simply do the whole us versus them game. And you'll find that with my content, I try to take a moderate approach to my own detriment. Because oftentimes, in taking a moderate approach, you get attacked by both sides. But that's the consequence of being authentic and being truthful. I don't have to make videos like this. I don't have to make videos like the one I made 2 videos ago, which was, had mixed reviews to say the least. 91.6% of people still like the video, but the 8.4% who didn't were very vocal. And that's something you should keep in mind too, is that if you go down and look at the comment section on any video, remember that the most vocal people are always going to be more negative. Like a person with a negative review of something is 10 times more likely to make it heard. So the people with positive or satisfactory reviews of the content are probably not going to say anything. Or they might just say good video or some other platitude, right? But the majority of those negative comments are from a very, very minority of people, and it's hard for us to keep that in mind sometimes, myself as a YouTuber also. What I'm trying to get at is that it would be very easy for me to come in here and play identity politics and tell you that these people were the problem, or that these people were the problem, or just to scapegoat somebody, right, to do this whole us versus them dance. And I try to avoid doing that because I understand that people are very impressionable, and that's what got AJ from InfoWars into a lot of trouble, is that he was doing this whole entertaining thing that he does. And I personally find the guy kind of entertaining. Even though obviously I don't agree with everything he says, he's entertaining, okay? And it's too bad he got the boot, but whatever, it is what it is. He got the boot primarily because some of his followers, like saying followers, it sounds kind of culty, but some of the people who were influenced by him or listened to his stuff went out and did some things. And that had real world consequences. That's why he's had to scale it back or tone it down or always add these caveats to what he says. So you'll notice he'll say something about somebody. He's like, oh, I wish I could just do this to you politically, not literally, politically, But the reason why I say this is I made that video a couple videos ago about the couple who were defending themselves. And a lot of people had problems with the laws surrounding that particular incident. Whether you think what they did was justified, whether you think it was ethically responsible, I'm not here to debate that, okay? Because I could easily make an argument for why what they did, particularly the wife, was justified if I wanted to sit there for a while and analyze it. Unfortunately, the majority of the comments who criticized that video, they did not present those types of arguments. A lot of it was just emotional ranting about why they felt it was wrong, but they didn't actually provide any real, premises to support the conclusion that what she did was justified. I could sit there and brainstorm some. So I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong. I'm saying that in the eyes of the law, what she did has consequences. And if I come out here and say, yeah, that was all right, and this and this and this, then I run the risk of influencing somebody. Not you, because 99% of you, this won't be the case. But there's going to be that 1% of people who said, oh yeah, who hear Nate's voice in their head when they're in an altercation. And that may influence them in that time and place, irrespective of whether it's against the law or not. So I open myself up to legal liability. Okay? So that's why for myself personally, I really have to rein in my opinions on matters like that when it comes to legal issues. So take that for what it's worth. With respect to this group called the Not Effing Around Coalition, if you don't know, several hundred members of this Not Effing Around Coalition, people who predominantly now self-identify as black, I think that's the most politically correct way I can put it. They were protesting something about a Confederate statue. Apparently there's some enmity between right-wing groups in the region. I don't know the truthfulness of all of that. I'm just saying that's what the media is saying, okay? So don't go down in the comment section and say, oh no, it's this, it's this, it's this. I'm sure there's a lot more to the story that we don't know. What's very concerning about this incident to me is that we have been seeing an escalation now. We've been seeing more guns being pulled out. We've been seeing more talk of civil war, right? But here's what I've come to realize. It's not going to be a civil war in the sense that was in the 1800s, if there is one. What could erupt is kind of like a gang conflict of sorts. Kind of like what happened in Ireland with the Protestants and the Catholics, where you have these fringe militant groups clashing with one another. So how I could see this escalating would be some tit-for-tat asymmetrical thing that slowly starts to escalate, just like most gang wars do. I could see that happening. What you need to keep in mind with all this is that this is a very, 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 very small percentage of the population as a whole. And it's very misleading for some people to come on YouTube and use their platform to provoke people into thinking that this is the majority of people feel the same way that those people feel. That's not the majority of people. The majority of people are out there working and getting along. In fact, I'm going to show some pictures on the screen of two of these types of militia groups who are both armed, who came together for the purpose of promoting firearms rights. And that's the kind of images that I think we need to see more of to remind us of the fact that there's more unity than there is division. But there's vested interest in keeping people divided, not only in the United States, but in my country as well. They always want a dead heat right to the finish. So many people's careers depend on these divisions to give their positions legitimacy. And should people ever come together, of course, a lot of these organizations, they're not going to have any reason to exist. So if the problem persists, that's just fine for them. It's not fine for everybody, for all of us. It's fine for them. So just keep that in mind. While you should absolutely be prepared in all ways, shapes, and forms with regards to self-defense within your own family, within your own home, your homestead, within your community, and whatever your network is, training is absolutely key, and you should not be naive for the sake of being politically correct to some of the real threats that might present themselves out of this scenario. It's just important that when you see something on TV that you don't overgeneralize that to everything. That's all I'm saying. Because there are some YouTubers out there who just milk incidents like this. And they know exactly what they're doing. Some of you probably know who I'm referring to because I've talked about him in the last few videos. I'm not going to give him any more shout outs because it's sad. I don't even watch the videos anymore because they're that provocative. They're simply for the purpose of riling people up knowing that there's a lot of very impressionable people out there who are going to see a story like that and think that that's everybody, or think that that's a significant majority of people. And then that influences your interactions with people throughout the day. You know, that makes it more likely that you're going to overreact in a situation. I'm hoping cooler heads prevail within the situation, but at the end of the day, you need to be prepared for shit to go sideways, and at some point or another, the problem may come through your neighborhood, and you may be tasked with dealing with it in a way which is ethical and legal. And the reason why I say that is there's responding, there's reacting, and then there's overreacting. If you overreact, anything between reacting and overreacting, you potentially are going to make things worse for yourself in the future if you survive that altercation. Some people say it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I get it, okay? But all I'm saying is that maybe don't jump to the most extreme response, reaction, overreaction. And I think the best way to prevent any situation like that from unnecessarily escalating, because sometimes it's going to escalate whether you want it to or not, then you have to take action, is to get training, is to be trained for those scenarios. One of the best ways to deal with a conflict is to leave. If you're in a position where you can just leave, that's the best way to deal with a conflict. Don't bring it up an extra notch if you don't have to. There's many ways you can de-escalate situations. There are many instances throughout the protests where the police took a reverse psychology approach, and they figured, you know what, it's easier, instead of creating this resistance, if we actually kind of walk amongst the crowd and talk to people and actually, you know, say that, hey, we support your cause. And that was far more effective. That diffused a lot of the anger and the tension right away, because no longer is there that us versus them. Now we're all people, right? I'm not saying that's all that sort of pie in the sky thing is going to work all the time. Obviously, if you have an angry mob that's riled up, you know, you're not always going to be able to deal with it. But oftentimes, if it's an organized protest, there is some wiggle room for being reasonable. And sometimes there just isn't. Sometimes no matter how much you give, they're not going to budge. They're mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore, and shit's going to hit the fan. And, you know, that's when you have to maybe take action to protect yourself. But the goal is to avoid situations like that, because the last thing I want to happen is, number one, for somebody to get unnecessarily hurt, or for a person to have some negative legal recourse because they were scared and they overreacted and they thought that something I said was okay, and they did it, and it wasn't okay in the eyes of the law. My whole purpose with this channel is to diffuse tensions. It's not to escalate. It's not to make the situation worse. The goal as a prepper has always been to be less part of the problem, so that the people who have the problems when the shit hits the fan, we're not contributing to it at all. So that has always been my purpose. A lot of people, I think, unfortunately, have this latent fantasy about shit hits the fan, and there's some people out there, they want chaos. They truly want chaos, but they want it, but I don't think when it comes to them, they're going to like it, because it's not like it is in the movies. And I think that anybody who wants it in the way they do have had very little exposure to real world struggle or real world stress. And they think it's just going to be like a video game, but it's not. For a small portion of the population who exhibit psychopathic traits, it might be fun for a while until you get caught. And you will get caught. And what I'm talking about here is if there is civil unrest on an epic scale that cannot be martial lawed away. That's what I'm talking about. Could it happen? Anything can happen. All I know is that we are one incident away, just one incident away from something happening within the civilian population where it just keeps escalating. You know, somebody's going to get hurt, and then people are going to want revenge, and then those people are going to want double revenge, and then they're going to want triple revenge, quadruple revenge, and it's just going to keep going crazy till you have an all-out gang conflict. That's what I'm going to call it, gang conflict. Because these are going to be fringe elements of society who are fighting. There may be communities that get caught up in the crossfire, and as such, they may be forced to take sides in some way, shape, or form. Okay? And that may be how more people get involved that otherwise wouldn't have any part of this. I have to emphasize that this is not something I want to happen, which is why you don't see me fanning the flames like some of these shock jocks are doing right now. Does that mean I think they should be censored? No, because at the end of the day, I believe in individual responsibility. It's up to the viewer to discern right and wrong. End of story. Because right when you go down that slippery slope of censorship, I mean, obviously there's certain things which cross the line where it's just clear-cut abuse. Okay, abuse of the position that you have to, promote violence and this, that, whatever. Obviously, there's a limit. But generally speaking, to have a perspective on something, I personally don't believe in censoring those things. I believe that individuals should be responsible. But we know that even though we have that ideal, that there's going to be a lot of people who follow us religiously, almost in a cult-like manner. That's another thing I'll suggest to people is never, ever idolize a YouTuber. Never idolize a celebrity. I mean, if anything, celebrate yourself. The word celebrity, to celebrate yourself. Never put anybody on a pedestal or idolize. That's why one of the most annoying things for me is when somebody comes on my videos and says, oh, you're not like so-and-so and so-and-so. Not because I'm jealous of those people at all. It's just that that person is in that mindset of a follower, which irritates me. It's okay to like a person and to support them, but at the end of the day, I'm just a normal guy who lives in an average neighborhood with an average house. You'll see me in the store. I put my pants on one leg at a time, and that's everybody. It doesn't matter how many subscribers you have. I mean, PewDiePie is a great example of that and the reason why he's been able to be so successful throughout the years is because he stayed true to what made him successful in the first place. He hasn't changed. They tried to change him, with the whole scare PewDiePie thing, but it never worked out. Obviously, he kind of self-sabotaged before that happened for other reasons. But yeah, don't get too caught up in the identity politics thing. I think there's going to be a lot of people right now who don't have the family support and the social skills because of this whole online video game culture, virtual media thing. There's a lot of people who don't have the social skills right now who are very disgruntled and angry about the world, and they're just on the brink of losing it. And that's the scariest thing, is that there's a lot of people who are really fringed out right now and who just cannot adapt to this society right now. That's what concerns me. That's why we see all the crazy incidents that we've been seeing in the last few years. People doing atrocious things that are just unthinkable, okay, on people who are innocent because they just can't live in this world. And there's a lot of those people out there, and those are the people who get taken in by cults. And cults come in all shapes and sizes. I've done videos on post-collapse cults before. Go check them out. I'll post a link in the comments section. I think at some point here I'm going to have to revisit the After the Collapse series because there's a new breed of prepper emerging. And post-COVID prepping is going to be different than pre-COVID prepping. Not because COVID is now a baseline for how we're going to measure all future SHTF scenarios, because this was a very, very tame situation. This isn't even close to what a lot of hardcore preppers are preparing for, whether that be complete disastrous global crop failures caused by whatever, and I say whatever because I'm trying to avoid a controversial issue, whether that's global conflict, EMP, a massive solar flare that wipes out the power grid or a significant part of it, There's a lot of things that could happen. Even a small asteroid, I mean, it sounds like the stuff of movies. But even an asteroid which didn't destroy the Earth, but destroyed a substantial part of it, could create global shit hits the fan. Anyways, we all understand what the potential for big SHTF events are, whether it be volcanoes, earthquakes, whatever. We all get it. I don't have to justify that at this point, I don't think. But I'm trying not to be complacent because this situation could spiral out of control rather quickly. So I hope that perspective explains it. And I've been contemplating branching out and doing an opinion channel. I used to have one. It was called The Philosophical Survivalist. I stopped making videos on it just because, I don't know, I didn't feel good about it. When you give opinion pieces like that for a thoughtful person like myself, I'm not saying other people aren't thoughtful, but I'm my own worst critic. And anytime I do a piece which is more opinion than fact, I oftentimes regret it because I see, a logical error that I made. So that's why I usually don't go down that road and do those hardcore opinionated videos, although I have been doing a bit more lately. Those are the ones that resonate with people, because that's what shows that we are in fact people. Anyways, guys, I've rambled on long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments section below about what I've talked about the potential for the identity politics flaring up into a serious problem down south. And remember, what I try to remind myself is that these are mostly isolated incidents, and it's important to keep that in perspective. But that's not to say there's not going to be spillover and it doesn't have the potential to grow. And it could grow quickly if the conditions present themselves. Thanks for watching, guys. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. Your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps.